Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am your host, Duck, and it is December. We're getting very close. I think it's like 18, 19 days to Christmas now. So, 12. Oh, man, I am so off. And I should know these things. Yeah, we're right around the corner from Thanksgiving. Oh, man. It's one of those days.
Maybe you should stop the recording and start again.
I'm telling you. But at least I have a witness here in the group that can attest to why I'm going nuts, and that's Brian. Brian was with me today. He was very gracious in assisting me in a very big job, and the two of us were just hauling ass all day long. How, Brian? Yep, you're muted. Oh, he's having troubles too. I'm not the only one.
Hi, Brian. Well, I was up at 4 a.m. this morning starting our day.
Yeah.
I hope, seeing you have to be at work at 6, I hope Doug paid you well. Good.
Hey, the least I could do. And we got pizza from the client, so couldn't ask for anything better. Pizzas and donuts and coffee. No, but it was a very big job, and they sprang a couple of last minute surprises on us, so it all worked out. All right. So it was suggested that, we will cover something in relation to masking. So the thing with Photoshop over something like Lightroom is the ability to do really, really complex masks. Of course, now Lightroom just introduced their new masking aspects to their program, so it's starting to get a little bit meshed together, although the masking capabilities in Photoshop far can outperform anything that Lightroom can do right now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Lightroom. So what is masking? Masking is, as it sounds, where we are masking something from view. And where a lot of people get kind of like turned around with masks is because when you're working on an image, the masks themselves aren't usually very visible. They're kind of hidden in a secondary layer, in a hidden layer. You can access those mask layers, all right? But when you access the mask layers, you're not able to see your image layer, all right? So you have to kind of, in the back of your head, really understand how the masks work and kind of keep what the program is doing with masks in the back of your head as you are working with images in the forefront. Okay. The other thing that confuse people is that masks operate in a black and white world. So anything that is white allows the user to see through the mask. So it's, in essence, anything that is white is transparent, while anything that is black gets hidden, right? Or it becomes opaque. Right? And then all the gray tones in between become layers or become levels of transparency. So something that's a darker gray will be less transparent than a lighter gray. So that allows us to really fine-tune how we use these layer masks or these masks to control different aspects of our image. The other thing that gets people confused is the fact that you can apply a mask to just about anything, anywhere within Photoshop. Not just on an image layer, but you can apply them to all kinds of effect layers. You can apply them to, like for example, you can apply them to a curves layer effect, a hue saturation effect. All those, anything in that can be done to an image, you can apply a layer to it as well. Okay, all right. So let me see if we can go over to my share screen. All right, where's my share screen? And window projector. All right, it's going to do that funky thing. All right. And where's my Photoshop? Okay. All right, hopefully everybody can see my desktop. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right, actually, let me switch over to Lightroom and let's pick out an image. We'll pick this one. Let's see. Yeah, no, here we go. We'll pick edit in, Photoshop. Let's switch over. And it'll take a second to load it up. Okay. So here we have a little landscape. It's a sunset image. This was taken at Monhegan Island, and it's the Monhegan Light up on the hill. And it was shot on purpose, with the foreground in silhouette, because I was really, really just fascinated by, the sky and, all the colors and the textures in the sky. And so we'll use this kind of like our example, all right? So the way a mask works, okay, I'm going to go ahead and create I'll create a color adjustment layer, and let's go with something a little on the orange side, vibrant orange. Okay. And I will put it underneath. Okay. So I have two layers. I have a color layer that is on the bottom, and then I have an image layer that is on top. So the way a mask works is, if I want to be able to see a portion of the color layer underneath, I need to punch a hole. All right, for lack of better terms, I need to punch a hole in the image layer. Okay, so now, okay, we can take our eraser. All right, we can take our eraser tool, and I can go ahead and erase. Let me go up to 100%. There we go. And if I just start erasing that layer of clouds, all right, I can now see through that layer to the layer below that has that orange, okay? And if I turn off that orange layer, you can see the grid that Photoshop uses to indicate that something is transparent, okay? So I've literally torn a hole in the picture in order to show through the picture to what's below it, okay? Now, obviously, the eraser tool is not a very appropriate tool for this because it's very destructive, all right? Once I punch a hole in this, there's no way I can get any of that information back, all right? So I'm just going to do undo, Control Z, and I got it. All right, so that's not very effective. A more effective way is to do a non-destructive method of creating a hole. And that's where masks come into play. Right? So the way a mask works is that it's going to create a layer, a hidden layer, within this image layer. All right, so we have the image layer selected. And then if I go all the way down, and it looks like it's half cut off on my screen here. There we go. All the way down, right down here, right? There's a little icon that's a rectangle with a dark circle in the middle of it, all right? That's our layer mask icon, okay? If I click on that, I now get this white blank icon right next to my image, right? And you notice that there's little white lines on the outside, kind of like in the corners, right? Pay attention to that because that lets you know that out of these two items on this layer, it is the layer mask that is being selected, all right? If I click on the image, you'll notice that that little frame switches over to the image. Okay, it's got that little white frame there. Okay, oops. These little. All right, and my cursor's just gone whacked. Okay, so whenever you want to work on a layer mask, just make sure that the mask is actually selected, all right, by looking at that little corner. Okay. Now, the layer mask only accepts levels of black and white, okay? So black and all the shades of gray. And you'll notice that in the, in this, oh my God, I got crazy neighbors, right? In this, in the color selection, all right, you notice that it's black and white. And if I go back to the image, right, you notice that I have a color there, all right, in black. And if I click on that, I can pick, you know, whatever color I want, and it's going to be indicated there. As soon as I switch over to my mask, you'll notice that it switches to black and white, all right? So you're going to be restricted right off the bat, all right? So I'm going to pick a brush, nice hard round brush. And the way layer mask works is anything that I paint on this white mask area is going to hide. Excuse me 1 second. I gotta close the door. I don't know if you guys could hear that bell. That's the call bell for the elevator. Right. anything that I paint in shades of gray or black on that layer, on that mask layer, is going to allow me to literally punch a hole through the image. Okay, so everywhere I draw, all right, you can now see a representation of everything that I just drew appears on that little icon for my layer. And you can see that the underlying orange color is now coming through everywhere that I paint. Okay. And the nice thing about this is it's very non-destructive. So if I go, oops, I just crossed into something that I didn't want to hide, all right, I can simply switch to a white brush, and if I paint over that black area, I now regain what I painted over. So this allows us to do a lot of things, by just painting on our mask to make certain selections. All right. So if I wanted to, for example, literally paint out the sky, all right, I can select a black brush, right, and very carefully go in, right, and then of course I'd have to be very careful and zoom in, and I can paint out that sky. Not very effective, all right, but I can do it, all right. And this is literally, yeah.
In a case like that, let's say we want to get rid of the sky,
Yep.
and you're using the brush. How much hardness do you want on your brush?
Well, first, I would never recommend you do this.
Okay.
There are much better ways, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I just want you to understand the basic fundamentals of a mask, okay? Because now, all right, I can tell Photoshop that, hey, everything that is black on that mask layer, I want you to hide, okay? And then I can come down here to my color, and I can say, well, I don't want an orange sky. I want, a midnight blue sky, or whatever it is, okay? That's the very basics of a mask, okay? But to get to your point a little bit, the quality of your brush is going to also determine. All right, so I can take a nice soft brush, all right, and actually let me go ahead and, all right, let me make this really, really big and really, really soft, all right. And now you can see, let's give a blaring different color. You can see that the edge, go back to my mask. You can see that the edge is very, very soft. It's a soft transition because I have a soft transition going on in my brush, okay? If I switch to a hard brush, I'm going to get a hard edge, right? If I use a textured brush, I'm going to get, let me make that a little bit larger. I'm going to get a textured effect, all right? And of course, if you have a brush that has a certain amount of opacity, we're going to get varying degrees of opacity, all right? And here's like a splatter brush, okay? All right, so what does this look like on the actual mask, all right? So I can see that everywhere that I'm painting in black and shades of gray, it's doing something to the image. It's allowing whatever's underneath it to kind of pop through, all right? But this alone, it's a little restrictive because you might say, you know what, there are things on here that I don't like that I want to fix that will probably be easier to fix on the mask itself rather than trying to putz around with brushes here like this. Okay. One way to do it is to go ahead and use the Alt key or the Option key for your Mac people. Alt key and click on your mask icon in the layers in the layers panel. All right. Now, what you are looking at here is the black and white brushwork that created all those holes. So everything that is solid black is going to be 100% transparent. And everything that is gray are various levels of transparency. The lighter the gray, the less transparent. The darker the gray, the more transparent. Okay? And that's what you have to kind of keep in mind. Okay? Now, doing brushwork like this is kind of crude. It's a crude way of working on masks. But it's nice because it's a quick and dirty way of being able to make changes in like small areas. All right. So if you need a quick fix for something, this is a great way of getting it. And the one thing I'll mention right off the bat, depending on the type of effect that you're trying to apply, sometimes these what look like horrendously crude attempts with a brush are not that noticeable in the final image. Right? And I'll show you what I mean. Okay. But everybody gets a sense of what it means by hiding. Okay. All right. And what I want you to know, all right, what I want you to see right now is I just did an oops. Okay. Is I started painting on that layer thinking that I was on my layer, on my mask layer, when I was actually on the image layer. Okay. And what ended up happening is I now have blue. I painted blue into my sky. Okay. So now I have to go undo, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and back all that out. So as you're working with layers, layer masks, just be aware that's very easy to kind of forget where you are, whether you're on the actual image or you are on the mask layer. Okay, so try to get into the habit of glancing at that mask layer and make sure that those little white corners are visible on the mask. Okay, all right.
What was that you did to turn off the mask when you did it?
Okay. Yep. So Alt, the Alt key, and clicking on the icon, the Alt key is going to switch over to the mask. All right. All right. And if you hit the Alt key and click on the mask, it'll bring you back. All right. If you use the Shift key and click, it temporarily hides it. It doesn't make any changes to the mask. It retains everything there, but it hides it. So sometimes it's a quick way of checking to make sure, what it is that you are doing. You can toggle back and forth. All right. Because like I said, sometimes the effects are very subtle. All right. In this case, I have a very jarring yellow color coming through. But oftentimes when you're doing like skin retouching or you're doing local color corrections, and they're very subtle, being able to toggle it back on and off like this is a great way to double check your work. Okay. The other one that you'll find that comes in handy sometimes is with the control key. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you the marching ants. It's going to make a selection of your mask. Okay. And the thing you have to understand, actually, you know what? I'll explain that in a minute. All right. I don't want to bog you down too much with technical stuff. All right. But the shift and then click on the mask layer creates a selection. Okay. And I don't know if I've ever, I think I've touched on making selections this way. But and then control D will deselect. All right. Okay. Everybody with me so far? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that mask. Okay. And, okay. All right, so that's how you can manually work on a mask. But oftentimes, what we need are something a little bit more subtle, something that is a little bit more finesse, something that reflects exactly what it is that we're working in on our image, rather than these blobs of area, all right? Because if we are working, let me just try this. Okay. When we're working with just a basic brush, all right, let's get a nice big soft round brush, okay? And I paint on my mask, all right? It's going to paint a blob. Just a blob, all right? Sometimes that's all we need, all right? Depending on what it is, obviously. Sometimes that's all we need. But sometimes we want a little bit more than just blobs of effects that we're doing, okay? And for that, I'm going to show you a little trick that I use a lot of times, especially with landscape photography. And that is using channels to create a mask. Channels to create a mask. Okay. So what are channels? Channels, all right, let me pull up the channels dialog box, panel here. If you don't see the channels panel, just go up to Windows and just scroll down to where it says channels, okay, and make sure that it's checked, all right? So if you don't see it, just check it, okay? Channels, all right, a lot of you have heard me give out this trick question, all right? The trick question is, does your camera take color pictures or black and white pictures? All right, how many of you have? Yes, exactly. How many black and whites?
156.
Nope. I see where you're going with that one, but it's actually taking 3 black and white images simultaneously. Okay. So in essence, all cameras are black and white cameras. But what the technology does is it uses colored filters in front of a certain portion of the pixels to kind of cheat how those 3 black and white layers are arranged in order to give us the color. All right, by blocking out certain parts of the spectrum of light. All right, so for example, if you put up a green filter, all right, we are filtering out I can't even remember how it works. We're filtering out everything but green. I think it's the way it works. Don't quote me. I'm having a little mental fart right now. But what we're doing is we are preventing a portion of the light spectrum from making an impact on the sensor or the film or whatever it is. Okay, a blue filter filters out a good portion of spectrum. The red filter and then the green filter. All right, and these three filters correlate with how our eyes work. All right, we have the same filters in our eyes that filter out certain parts of the spectrum of light. And if you want to get really deep into it, there's all kinds of information on the internet about it. And where blue and red are a little bit, on each side of the spectrum, light spectrum. Green is kind of one of those that kind of rides the cusp between the blue and the red. All right. So the combination of these three, the numbers of these three grayscale images, our computers calculate and say, okay, well, it's supposed to be this color orange or this color yellow, right? Or this hue of pink, whatever the calculation is, right? But the underlying technology behind that color are black and gray and white images, okay? And there's three of them, right? The RGB, that's where we get RGB, right? Red, green, blue. And if we go to our channels panel, what we are actually looking at is those three layers separated for us. Okay? So if you notice here, the top layer says RGB, all right? And that's going to give us our full spectrum. And then right below it, we see red, we see green, and we see blue. And if we click on any one of those, it's going to isolate that one layer, right, and hide the other two. All right, so this is everything that is captured by the red channel, okay? This is everything that's captured by the green channel. And this one here, the bottom one, is everything that is captured by the blue channel, right? And you can see that the sky, the difference in the sky, the tonality of the sky in the blue channel is wildly different than the red channel, okay? And likewise with the green. Okay, although you can see that it's a little bit more even gray with the green channel. All right, and that's because anything that is a light color, anything that's white or a light color, means that there is more blue in that area. Or now see, I'm having another mental fart. More blue. All right, because the intermix of all three is going to create white. Okay, so and anywhere that is black, there's less of that blue light hitting it. Okay, so one way of making a selection is to come into the channels panel and then toggling through and say, okay, I want to isolate my sky from the foreground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle down each one of these individually, and I'm going to look at how my image gets separated between the sky and the ground. All right. So you can see that here my sky still has a lot of black in it. So that might not be good. If I go down to the green, that's even worse. There's, a lot of black. Okay. But if I go to the blue, you can see that now my horizon line is a lot more visible. Okay? There is a higher contrast between my foreground objects and my background sky. And that's what I'm going to look for with this manner of creating masks. Okay? What I want to do is I want to be able to manipulate the mask in a way that is going to be easy to separate the two. And because there's a high contrast between the dark values of the foreground and the lighter values of the sky, I can very easily go into that sky and with a curves adjustment or maybe even a levels adjustment, I might be able to manipulate those light tones even lighter. Okay? So remember that trick I said to keep in the back of your mind with the control click. Okay, control click, and you can actually see my cursor changes. I'm pressing and holding the control key. When I click on that blue channel, you're going to see the marching ants. All right, and the trick you need to learn about this is that the marching ants are only going to show anything that is 50% gray or more. Okay? Anything below 50%, it's just not going to make a selection. So you have to really kind of get used to this. All right? But I've made a selection. Okay? And you're going to look at the marching ants and you're going to say, well, you know, it looks like it's just selecting the clouds. I don't want to select just the clouds. I want to select the whole entire image. All right. Again, trust me when I tell you, all right, what it is showing you isn't necessarily what it's actually doing. So you have to kind of trust a little bit in the system. All right. But control and then click on whatever layer you want to select. It's going to make a selection. Okay. And you're going to go Control C to copy or Command C to copy, right? Control C. All right. And it's going to copy it to the clipboard. Now we need to go ahead and I'm just going to undo the marching ants. All right. Control D or Command D for Mac people. All right. And then I have to make sure that I go back to my RGB. So I'm going to click on my RGB layer in the channel. Okay. And I'm done. I've made a selection of that black and white channel, and I've now loaded it to my clipboard. Okay. I go back to my layers. Let me get rid of that. Okay. And I am going to create a mask. All right. I'm going to go Alt, click on the mask, and then Control V to paste it. Okay. And then deselect. Right. And you're going to notice that it's inverted. Okay. And the reason it looks inverted is because I pasted it into a white mask. But if you notice that in the channels, all of this here was black. Okay. But in here, it is white. All right. So, I'm going to go ahead and delete all that. Control A, delete. I'm going to go ahead and invert it. Control I. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste. Oh, no, I can't. Scratch that. I'm again, not thinking. I'm not thinking. because it selected the black. All right. Control V. All right. Deselect. Invert. Okay. And I got, oh, why do I have, oh, hold on. What the heck did I just do? I just messed up somewhere really, really royally, and I have no clue what I did. All right. Channels, blue. Select. All right. You know what? Let me just show you the quick way. I shouldn't be even showing you the long way. All right. Make your pick. All right. Control, click on the channel. All right, and leave it selected. All right. Disregard everything. I was trying to show you the long way and explain to you, and then I'm just screwing it all up. So disregard that. Let me just show you the fast way. All right. Select it. Come back to your RGB. Come back to your layers. And then if you click on your mask, it's going to apply the mask. Okay. And you notice that suddenly my image went all kabuki. All right. It's because I have that yellow, greenish yellow underneath. All right. So everything that is now black on my mask, all right, everything that is black here, okay, is now being hidden. All right, there's my mask. There it is. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and to make this easier, I'm just going to go ahead and make, well, let's make it black. Okay. All right. This mask is hiding all my foreground. And it's kind of showing through a little bit of the sky. And then the bright areas, which is the bright areas, all right, that's where it's hiding, or it's showing the original image, this layer, okay? Everything below it is that black layer underneath. So if I change that, it changes, okay? But what I want to do is I want to isolate the two. So Alt, click on the layer mask. Now I can manipulate it. This is where I want it to get to. And I just probably confused the heck out of all you guys. And I apologize. But this is where we want to get to. We want to manipulate this layer mask so that the sky lightens up and the foreground stays black. Okay? So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, all right, and Curves Adjustment. Okay, Curves Adjustment. And now if I bring my curve up, you're going to notice that my sky brightens up. Okay. Right. And my foreground, which is black, still stays black. Okay. All right, and I can really make this a nice contrast curve. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm making a separation. I'm using the curves to give me more separation, contrast separation between the light gray of the sky and the black of the foreground. All right. So now if I click back on my image, you can see how that red is really, really coming through. Okay? Go back. All right. And because we have other tools available, all right, remember I said the brush is kind of like a blunt tool that just kind of just does blobs? Well, in this particular case, we can use that to our effect. Select white, and then if I paint on this upper part of my sky, I can get rid of those dark patches. Okay, make my brush smaller, and I can get rid of all this area. And what I am left with, right, is a selection of the sky and the ground that I can now manipulate independently. All right. Now I'm being kind of rough here, but I can actually go to a let's see, overlay. What is it? Yeah. And then just use the overlay ability of my brush to kind of like get in there without doing a lot of, unnecessary harm. Okay. And then, of course, I can go back to my adjustments. All right. We did curves last time. I'll show you what we can do with levels. Okay. We can take our black point and we can bring it in. So everything that is dark gray is going to shift to black. Right. And everything that's light gray is going to shift to white. Okay. And now I have a very clean, very detailed mask, right? And any residual stuff like these windows here, I can just go ahead and pick black as my foreground color, right? And paint in wherever I don't want. Okay. There we go. And those windows are gone. I can even do that. Okay. Right? So now we come back to our image. You can see that it has selected, it has hidden all the foreground. Okay. And I can come back here, Control I to do an inverse. And I've now masked out my sky. All right. I know I probably lost you guys somewhere along the way on all of that because I was a little clumsy with it. And I apologize. I'm trying to do this on the fly here without being prepared. Who's got questions to this point? No questions? The questions will come later, right? Okay.
I got a question. I guess so. What's your end game in this photo?
So what I'm just showing an alternate way of making complex masks. All right, by being able to pull something from the channels layer or channels panel to use as a mask. That's all that was. Okay.
So as I'm watching this, so every so often I find these apps out on graphic and editing apps, and there's one I thought I was playing with, and if you ever saw Sin City.
Okay.
And so there's a whole thing called the Mars effect.
Yes.
Right, and I like that, and so I've been looking at some ways of, so like I was saying the other time, I like that Mars effect in that little Cam Art app, but I want to know how I can do that in Photoshop, and it looks like this might be lending itself to those kinds of things.
Yeah, so you have to understand that particular effect relies very heavily on the quality of the contrast of the lighting. Because all it's doing is it's manipulating the midtones, all right, and taking it and pushing them to the extremes. So it's removing a lot of midtones, and it's saying anything that is, at whatever point, doesn't necessarily have to be the 50% mark. But we'll use that as an example. Anything from 50% gray to black is going to push it more into the black. And anything from 50% gray to white is going to push it more into the white. So it's creating that valley in the midtones. Okay? And that's where you get that kind of black and very high contrast black and white Sin City effect. Okay? But it is very heavily reliant on how the subject was lit. Okay? In order to be very effective.
There's another, I guess, this black and white effect I've been playing around with. And what I've noticed is, in fact, out on my Facebook profile, that's what I've been using, is black and white image of me with sunglasses. And but if I showed you the original photograph, it was actually just I was practicing on something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's surprising to me that how I went from whatever that was to
right.
This might be a path to this.
Yeah. Yeah, without fully understanding, what it is that you're looking to do, I don't. And it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more than mask selections for that. But I can see where you're going with it, with the channels. All right. But what you have to understand in this particular case is that being able to take one of the channel layers, here, let me go ahead and just turn that off. By being able to use one of the channel layers that has a good contrast, all right, we can take and use that as a means of creating a mask rather than having to do it manually, all right? Depending on what it is that you want to manipulate, all right? So in this particular case, by having a very strong contrast, we can do something like a sky replacement, okay? Where it's here, I just put a red background as an example so you can see, how I completely removed all the information from the sky. But you can drop in an image of a sky in here, right? And use this technique to very realistically remove the old sky and put a new sky in. Okay, so but what I'm showing here is a very extreme modification. All right, this is taking a mask and converting it into black and white in order to make these extreme selections. Okay, and in this case, I'm selecting the sky. Okay, or if you invert it, all right, Control I, Command I, you can select the foreground. Okay, all utilizing the same mask. Okay, but if I get rid of that, I'll go delete, I'll go back to my channels, all right, and let's say I pick the green one, all right, gonna go Control, click on the green, all right, come back, make sure my RGB is selected, come back to my layers, all right, and this time what I want to do is I want to paste the invert. So I'm going to hit and hold the Alt key, and I'm going to click on my mask icon. Okay? And now everything that is white, all right, everything that's light in the original image here is now masked. Okay, it's now masked because I have placed an inverted image. Okay, now this is where the finesse comes into play. All right, up to this point, I kind of did these very brutal, stark black and white. All right. In this particular case, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay. So you can see that all the subtle tonality is there. All right. The only thing is I've inverted it. Okay. So everything that was bright on the original channel layer is now black, and everything that was black is now white. Okay. And I've inverted it, on purpose, okay? Because it allows me to really manipulate all the light areas, okay? So I can take that, I'm going to put that garish yellow, all right? And because the sky, let me flip back, because the sky is not 100% solid white, there's shades of gray in here, all right? Some of that yellow is going to bleed through, all right? Because, again, different levels of transparency, all right? And you're going to notice that, like, close to the horizon line, see how that gray is a little bit darker, all right? Close to that horizon line, we can see the influence of that yellow. So what we're doing is we're utilizing the natural tonality that is inherent in that channel layer and utilizing it to our effect. Okay. Now, obviously, this in and of itself is kind of like, all right, so what? I can put a color layer beneath it and change the colors. That's not very effective. Aha. But if let me get rid of that yellow layer, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that mask. Okay, please. So we're back to our original. If we use that very same technique in combination with some kind of adjustment, at that point, we can really open up our magic. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my channels. I'm going to select that green again. All right, so Control, click on the green. It's going to give me my marching ants. Make sure I come back and activate my RGB. Come back to my layers. And this time, I'm not going to do anything but create a curves adjustment. Curves adjustment. Okay? And you can see that it has applied that mask. Right? Here's the mask. It's applied that mask to the curve. All right? Now, this is where the confusion starts for a lot of people, if I haven't confused you already. All right? But this is where the confusion gets with a lot of beginners. Okay? Because now we are putting an invisible mask. You really can't see the mask. You can see the effect of it, but you can't see the mask. So we're putting an invisible mask on an invisible layer. All right? Meaning that it's on a curves layer. All right? So there are no pixels to this layer that we can see. All we can see are the effects it has on the layer below. Okay? So, to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to launch just a regular curves adjustment. Just a regular curves adjustment. Okay? And you can notice that it created a layer mask automatically. And what is that layer mask? It is white, meaning it is transparent. Whatever effect gets applied onto this curve will become visible on that layer. Okay? So if I bring my exposure up, what it's doing is it's making a change on that curves layer. Okay? But because that curves layer is invisible, we see it affecting the layer below it. All right, so anything below, in our case, the landscape image, we're noticing that that landscape image is brightening up. All right, but we did not do anything to that image layer whatsoever. What we did is we manipulated the layer above it. And because it's invisible, we can see its effect to the layer below. Make sense? Hopefully. I haven't lost you? Okay. So now, because there is a layer mask associated with that curves, if I pick a brush, all right, let me make it a little bit bigger. And if I paint black, let me make that 100%. Okay. Why is it not painting black? You know what? I really hate my computer. Have I ever said that? I really hate my computer. There's my brush. And it's not painting black. Why? Okay. All right. Oh, I know why. Duh. Ha ha ha. I changed the blend mode. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. So now if I paint black, what I'm doing is I am hiding the effect of the exposure shift, right? The curves is making things brighter. What I'm doing is when I paint on that layer mask, I am hiding that exposure shift, okay? And because, again, that layer is invisible to us, we see the effect of it on the layer below, which is our image layer. All right. So we can use masks to influence things like our curves adjustment, levels adjustment, hue saturation, anything like that. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Okay. I'm going to destroy that. Okay. I'm going to come back to my channels, get my green, Control click to make a selection, bring my RGB, come back to my layers, adjustment, and just click on a curves. Okay. And it has applied, just like before, it has applied that mask to that curves adjustment. So everything that is white, all right, is going to show the adjustment. Everything that's black is not. All right. So if I make that exposure shift up, you notice that those bright areas get even brighter. Okay, which is not what we want. Okay, but we can take it and we can tone it down and make it darker. Okay. Of course, when we make it darker, we're also making it a little bit more saturated because there's yellow color already in our sky. Okay. But we can control how we adjust our image just by utilizing a mask that's created from the image itself. Okay. Which channel you select again, it's really dependent on what it is that you're trying to do. Okay? So I can control my sky. All right? I can now say, you know what? I want to make a hue saturation adjustment. Okay? And in this particular case, if I make a change in my hue saturation, all right, you're going to notice that it's affecting everything below it, all right? But because there's a mask there, all right, it's going to do some really funky things. So be very, very careful. And this is where stacking order plays a little bit of an important role, okay? So in this particular case, what I want to do, let me just go back and reset this. I want to say, you know what? I just want to take all those bright areas and shift the color. All right, so let me get rid of that. Come back to my channels. Make my... I told you I hate my computer. There we go. Make my green selection, control, click, get my marching ants, come back up to my RGB, come back to my layers, and I'm going to create a hue saturation layer, and it's going to apply that mask. Okay? So I can take and I can say, all right, I want to, shift the colors. All right. Let's make it an alien sky. All right. We'll go green. We'll go neon green. Okay. So now we have a very radioactive sky. Okay. And I'm only affecting the very light areas of my image. All right. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So now, let's say I wanted to create another adjustment layer. What do we want to do? Maybe we want to increase the contrast in the light areas. Okay. All right. Again, we go. Oops, wrong one. We go back to our channels. All right, and we can do this whole thing again. Okay, which is a pain in the butt, right? Because we've done it twice already. Okay. So now this is where we start thinking, okay, I've already done this selection of that very same mask twice, all right? It's right here. I don't need to keep going back to that channels panel to grab it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create let's get my contrast, okay? And I'm going to drop down one layer. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm just going to, oh, hold on, wrong one. Shift key, I think it is. Shift, drag it up, replace, yeah, no, damn it. Control, it's one of those. Control key, drag it up, replace, no. It's one of these. Give me the Alt key. I should have known the Alt key. All right, Alt key, drag it up. It's going to make a copy. Okay, so now I can go to my brightness and contrast, and I can increase contrast. I can decrease brightness, whatever it is. Okay, and I can keep going on and on and on like this. All right, but now what we're doing is we're replicating the same exact mask on all of these layer adjustments. Okay? So there's a little different method we can do. All right? Because now let's say I come down to my curves adjustment. All right? And I say, you know what? We have a lot of dark gray in that area. I want to make it a little lighter. So I'm going to go to my image adjustments. I'm going to go to, let's go to levels. and I'm going to bring my white point up. Okay. So basically what I'm doing is I am allowing more of the effect to come through in the sky. All right. And I click back. All right. Come back. And it says, well, you know, it applied it, but it only did it to the curves. All right. It didn't do it to my saturation. It didn't do it to my contrast and brightness layer. All right. So what do I got to do? Do I have to go in and make a change to all these layers? All right. Go image, adjustment, levels, and then somehow try to see if I can replicate it. All right, this becomes a pain in the butt. Okay, or we can say, you know what? I'm just going to take this and I'm going to press and hold my Alt key and drag it up and say yes, replace. And it's going to copy it. All right, but again, I'm just creating a lot of extra work. Okay, so one way, another, I should say, a better way of doing this is, let me get rid of these three. Okay. Is I'm going to go ahead and create my adjustments. All right, I'm going to create my curves adjustment. All right, and I say, okay, I want to just give it a little bit of increase. All right, I'm going to create what was my hue saturation. Okay, and I'm going to, boost the saturation, maybe change the color. All right, and then I got my brightness. All right, and contrast. All right. And instead of applying the same mask over and over and over and over, I'm just going to group these three together. Control G to group it. And I'm going to come back to my channels. All right. Actually, let me hide that first. Come back to my channels. Come back to my green channel. Alt click. Or no, I'm sorry. It was Command click. Oh God. Command for Apple, Control for PC. All right. Command click, make my selection. Come back to my layers. My group, I am going to create a mask. Okay. So now I have a mask on that group. I can go ahead and make whatever changes I need there, and it's going to be applied to that whole image through that one mask on the group page. So I can make my nice, neon green. I can go ahead and maybe reduce contrast, or maybe increase contrast. There we go. All right. Shift my brightness. Right. And now if I need to make a change, I just need to make a change on that one. Oops. I can make a change on that one layer mask. Okay. So bring my levels. There we go. Click OK. There we go. All right. Make sense? So just a little bit of forethought. All right. You can kind of simplify your workflow a little bit. Okay. I know I probably just confused the heck out of everybody. And I apologize. Huh? Yeah. Not my best night, guys. I apologize, but my brain is literally really is frying.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Anything about crypto? No, serious. You were, as you were going through this, I saw something and it made me think, is this, I'm interested in infrared photography. Could this be somehow you play around with that? It looks like this might be.
No, infrared is a totally different animal. infrared is utilizing the image data from a different portion of the light spectrum. Okay, so can you use masks with infrared? Absolutely. You know, it's a photograph. All right. Can you use any of these techniques to simulate infrared? All right. It won't be true infrared. You can kind of sort of fake it. Yes, you can. You can fake it. However, it's not going to be true infrared, and you're going to need to understand how infrared works in order to be able to replicate it. Because when we take a standard photograph, all right, and we go to we turn these layers off. If we go to our channels, and let me pull up the green channel. Actually, yeah, I'll just pull up the green channel. Okay. Any vegetation that is green, all right, it's going to really show up on the green channel. All right. However, with infrared has a hard time seeing the color green, or rather reflecting back the color green. So it's going to register on the green channel here, is going to register completely different than what you're seeing here. All right, simply because the way an infrared camera sees things. All right, so we're used to seeing a color spectrum, you know, that falls comfortably within that infrared and the ultraviolet zone, right? Okay. And then when we go to infrared, we're saying, okay, disregard all of this information. Don't even pay attention to it. We're going to look at this part of the light spectrum. Okay. So all the light waves that we normally see, the camera's not even going to see it. It's going to shift over and see everything that the infrared light is hitting. All right. So it's going to register on the sensor in a completely different way. Completely different. Okay. Yes, you can still manipulate it. All right. But it's going to give you a totally different look than anything that we've shown here. So, but it's fun to play with. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Okay. I know I've confused the dickens out of you guys. All right.
You lost me a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. I apologize. It is my bad. I'm not being very coherent today at all, and I know it. I can tell.
Well, it's not entirely your fault. Like, I know so little about Photoshop, so I get lost easy.
I appreciate it. Let me see if I can find another image to pull up. Let me pull up Lightroom. Let's we'll pull this one up. Little turtle sitting on a pond. Okay. Little turtle sitting on a pond. Okay. We go to our channels, all right, and we go to our green. Okay. You can see that, you know, the green values are a lot lighter than that bluish green. Okay. All right. because there's a lot of green light being reflected back to the camera. Okay. The blue channel, notice how the leaves have gotten a lot darker. All right. Because the leaves are predominantly green, although there is some blue in that green. All right. So it's going to reflect some of that blue light back. But notice how the water that's relatively blue, it's kind of like murky blue. You can see how that water is very light here. Okay. All right. And the turtle, let's see, the turtle in the rock, it has a lot more red in it. You're going to notice that that is very, very bright. Okay. And that's reflecting back a lot of the red color. Right. And there's also a lot of red in these leaves. Okay. All right. But I didn't pick this image to use the channels. Another way of being able to create masks is using color ranges. Right? And this is something that it's probably a little bit more intuitive and easier to do in Lightroom, just because the way Lightroom is working with their masking, they kind of incorporate it into it. But what we can do is see if I can remember where it is. Edit color range. Okay, so we have blue, we have green, we have a little bit of yellow there. Browns and oranges is usually what you would find in something that's brown. Okay, but let's say I wanted to select the water area, all this bluish water area. Okay, and I wanted to just be able to isolate that part of it and shift it, maybe make it a little bit more blue. All right. Okay. So one way we can do that is, in this particular case, because we have such a distinct separation of colors, we can use that to our ability. So we go to Select, Color Range, right? And it's going to pull up a little dialog box. Okay? And it's going to give you a preview. Okay? And if you look at the preview, oh my goodness, it's a black and white mask. Okay? But what is it a black and white mask of? Okay, well in this particular case, it's whatever was selected previously. So what I'm going to do is I want to tell Photoshop, hey, I want you to make a selection based on what I pick. Right? So over on the right-hand side, we see these little eyedropper icons. Okay, we're going to start off. All right, let me just bring my range down, my fuzziness down. Okay, I'm going to start off by clicking on that first icon, which is typically selected by default. Right, and this is going to give me my initial selection. All right. So I'm going to go onto the image, right? So I'm going to come off the dialog box onto the image, and it looks like a little targeting reticle, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a color of that blue, okay? And you're going to notice that where I clicked, it's going to give me a representation up in this little box here, right? And you can see that it's not very far, okay? That's because the range and fuzziness are turned down, okay? Range is how much of that area we want to cover, all right? And you have to be careful because, sometimes just moving the slider can get a little, too crazy. All right. Sometimes it's better to just go ahead and keep the range low and go and move to the second eyedropper that has the little plus symbol. And then now we can go ahead and start adding areas. And I'm just going to click on all these areas of blue, right? And every time I click, it's going to add that section, okay? And what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I get a fairly decent coverage, okay? Fairly decent coverage. All right, maybe down here, here, all right. Here. All right, and now I can go ahead and apply my range. Okay. All right, so that's range. And fuzziness is that soft edge transition, all right, from the color that gets picked to the adjacent colors next to it. So the more fuzziness, the more of similar colors gets added and added and added. All right. So you have to be careful with the fuzziness because, you know, you can go beyond the blue and then, you know, now you start getting into the blue greens. Well, the blue greens may be affecting some of these lily pads. So we have to be careful. Okay. So you want to keep a close eye on here. All right, and make sure that we're good, okay? So, for example, I don't know if you guys can see it because, you know, this dialog box is pretty small, but there is a lily pad right here that is mostly underwater. So, because it's mostly underwater, it is a green leaf that is being affected by the blue of the water. All right, and it's not that the water is blue, it's just that it's reflecting a blue sky, okay? So that green lily pad now has a blue overtone to it, okay? And if we look on this part of our mask that we are creating, you can see that it's kind of like a mid-tone gray. So now we are seeing how that fuzziness is affecting, all right, and if I keep pushing it, making the fuzziness more and more, that mid-tone gray is now a light gray. So that means that it's now targeting a greener blue than my original blue, all right? So you have to be careful how you do this, all right? And also there's a little bit of a blue tint in the turtle's shell, so I got to make sure that, you know, I just don't go too crazy with the fuzziness and start cutting into something that I don't want. All right. Like, for example, I don't want to cut into the turtle's shell. All right. So now I can see just by this representation that I've done a pretty decent job of selecting all the blue area. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and you're going to get the marching ants. Okay? The marching ants. And at this point, because I have a selection, I can go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to make an adjustment. And in this case, I'm going to go to my all-time favorite, the curves adjustment. Click on that, and it's going to apply that mask. All right, so when I make a change on my adjustment, you notice that it's only affecting the blue that I selected. All right, everybody see that? All right, I'm making very stark changes here so you can see it. Okay. All right. So this now has allowed me to target a very specific color range and isolated it on a mask with very, very little effort. All right. I did not need to go in with a brush and paint in my selection. Okay, so in this case, what I want to do is I want to take that water and I want to make it bluer. So I'm going to go to my blue channel on my curves adjustment, and I'm going to boost my blue. All right, I'm going to make it very jarring so you can see it. It's going to be a very gross blue. Okay. I can come back and do the same thing, select, color range, and now this time what I want to do, I'm going to bring these down again, all right? What I want to do is I want to target the green. So I can go ahead and click on, click on that lily pad. Let me increase the range here. Click on the lily pad. Go to my second eyedropper, which is the eyedropper with the plus, and everywhere I click that is green, it's just going to add it. Let me increase my range. Click on the green, green, right? And every time it's just going to add more of that green selection to my mask. Okay, and I can increase the fuzziness a little bit, increase my range. Okay, and I think I got everything. Oh, I missed one. Double check. All right, and now I can make a decision. All right, this is a little bit more on the yellow green. Do I want to include it? Well, it's part of the vegetation, so yeah, I think I will. Okay. And once you're happy, right, I'm going to increase my range. I'm going to increase my fuzziness. All right. I'm starting to see it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's just starting to affect the rock and the turtle. Right. So I'm going to cut down a little bit more on my fuzziness. All right. And on the range. There we go. And that looks like a decent selection. Now, I don't know if you can see it. There's some mid-tone grays and some light grays up in this area. And that's okay because these are not all evenly toned green. There's some that have a little bit more yellow in it, like in these here, while the other ones are kind of more that kind of bluish green, all right? So it's going to reflect that, okay? I'm going to hit OK. It's going to make a selection with the marching ants. Give it a second. Ooh, what'd I do? I know why. I was in my mask. Aha, see? All right. Now be careful. Watch where you guys are. I was on my mask. Okay, here we go. Okay. Make a selection on my image. Okay. Click my adjustment. I'm going to come back in with a curves adjustment. All right. And you know what? I'm just going to label this one here blue. Blues. All right. And this new one here, I'm going to call that greens. Just so I keep track. All right. And then I can go to my green channel adjustment and I can say I'm going to make those a lot greener. Okay. There you go. Okay. And before and after. Okay. So it's a very, very quick way of being able to make selections to use as a mask based on the colors, all right? And then, of course, this particular image, the colors are very well segregated. But let's say, you know, for example, you had green in on the grass, and then you had a woman who was wearing a green outfit. Well, at that point, you can come into the mask and say, okay, I'm going to take a nice brush. All right, I'm going to make sure that it's black. That's my foreground. And whatever you don't want affected, all right, you can just kind of like edit it out. All right, so oops. I can go in and I can do cleaning up, all right? And you can say, okay, well, I don't want this green part affected. All right. So now when we come back out, all right, we can see how that one leaf right there is no longer brightened up because I've dropped it out of the mask. I've hidden it by painting it black. Okay, so that's all of these are completely editable. You can go in and you say, okay, you know what? Maybe let me back up a little bit here. There we go. All right. Maybe I don't want all the bottom ones affected. Okay. Maybe I just want all the top ones affected. Okay. And then we can go and say, oh, where's my green? Okay. And just the top ones are modified. All right. So you can go in and edit any of these at any time. All right. Any questions so far? Some of you getting back on track? Did I regain you after losing you?
Yes, I did.
A little bit.
A little bit, okay.
A little bit.
Okay. Let me get rid of this one here. Let's open up let's open up, let's see. Let's open up this one here. All right. Edit in Photoshop. Okay. Another landscape one. And now what we can do is I show you a simple way using blobs. All right. Remember I said earlier, blobs sometimes are a way that, we can get, a certain amount of control over our images. Okay. So here we have something that, I say, well, it's looking a little flat. Maybe, I want to put in some color. Okay. So I'm going to create a hue saturation layer. And I'm going to shift my colors, all right? And my image is going to go completely bonkers, all right? But in particular, what I want to do is I want to focus on this tree right here, okay? That tree. Now, making a selection of one tree amongst a lot of trees, all right? Let's go to the channels. I don't care what channel you pick. All right, come on, why is it not going? I don't care what channel you pick, all right? You're not going to be able to isolate one tree amongst many. It's going to be impossible. Okay? So what we're going to do is I have applied a hue saturation. And what I've done is I've made a modification. Because my layer mask is white, I am going to see the effect of this modification on the entire image. Okay? But in this particular case, I am only concerned with this little tree right here. All right. So I am going to disregard everything else. All right. I'm going to make my adjustment, get the color, whatever color red. Maybe I want a little bit more vibrant. Maybe I want a little bit more brighter. Okay. All right. I'm kind of liking that red. That's what I'm going to go with. Okay. I now am going to invert this mask. And by inverting it, I'm going to change it from white to black. Okay. And black is going to hide everything on this layer. All right. On my hue saturation. Okay. It's going to hide everything on that hue saturation. Okay. Now remember, a hue saturation layer is an adjustment layer. The adjustment itself is invisible to us. Okay. All we can see is its effect on the layer below it. Okay. On the layer below it. Okay. So what I've done is I've changed the mask from being where I can see the effect. I've inverted it so that it now hides the effect. Okay. So in essence, what I'm looking at is my original image the way it was. Okay. Again, because that hue saturation layer is invisible. I'm going to select a brush. Nice, big, soft, round brush. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom into that tree a little bit more. Okay. All right. In my color selections, I want to make sure that white is my foreground color. All right. Right now it's black and white. Oh, and by the way, if you need to reset this, the letter D resets it to the default, which is black and white. And then the letter X toggles the foreground and background colors. So if you weren't aware of that, all right, now you are. Okay. All right. I'm going to make sure that white is my foreground color. All right. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint white onto this black mask, and the white is going to punch holes in that mask. All right. And I can just use blobs. All right. And keep it kind of sort of within the boundaries of that tree. Okay. And I can resize my brush as needed. Okay. And I can paint that little tree and change it from a kind of like nasty yellowy color to a very fall-like red tree. Okay. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. Okay. Let me zoom out. Turn it off, turn it on. And now, because I have isolated that one little tree on its own adjustment layer with its own mask, I can come back to that adjustment and I can say, all right, well, it's a little bit too ghastly red. Maybe I want to make it, a little bit more of a normal green. All right. That still looks horrendous. I like the fall colors better, but you can change the colors however you see fit. All right. So now we have a little bit more of a green tree. Okay. And say, well, maybe I want, one of those really lilac-y bushes. Okay. So you can change the colors, to your heart's content. All right, but I think What was that? There we go. That's looking more like fall, right? Okay. All right, and that in essence is the power of mask. So, any questions? I'm gonna have to make this up to you guys and get a better session with a better explanation. I completely hacked this one on you guys, and I apologize. So, but hopefully you got something out of it.
Well, I think that what you just did now was pretty cool. You know, when we got a little lost on here trying to go that Saturation, but this is neat right here.
Yeah.
And I imagine you could then futz around and maybe if you wanted to go part around with that tree behind it, then you could isolate that on another layer with green.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. So again, what I would do is come back to my adjustments, create a new one, and then of course by default, it's going to be a mask that allows you to see whatever effect you are applying. All right. So maybe I want to create something that's a little bit more yellow. Yeah, here we go. That's a little bit more yellow. Okay. I'm going to look to this one right here. Okay, I got the yellow looking the way I want. I'm going to invert it to hide it. Come in with my brush, white, and then just touch it in. Instant fall colors. All right. Now, here, all right, and here's something else. Okay. So you say, oh, I kind of like that yellow. It's very natural looking. All right. I got this tree here I want to do, but I don't want to make it look the same because it's not quite the same tree. Okay. So I have white. All right. What if I pick maybe a light gray? Okay. And now all of a sudden, I can brighten that up, but it's not the same brightness of yellow. Notice how it's a little bit more subdued. Okay. I'm not letting it get to that bright yellow. Okay. If I go to bright yellow, right, that's how it looks. Okay. All right. We can go, let's go to, there you go. Tone that down. Okay. I can also come back to this red one and say, you know what? I want to create a little bit of separation. Let me add a little bit of red to this tree. Okay. And because we have our settings already dialed in, we can just play around with those masks. Okay. Now, all right. Like Brian said, you know, hopefully you guys got back on track of what I'm trying to explain here. All right. But keep in mind, this is a very simplistic form of mask manipulation. All right. Take it, get used to it. But trust me, step as quickly as you can, step beyond this. Because once you start exploring the ability to make masks with your channels, this is where all the power comes in, right here. All right, to be able to you know, take a mask like this. Okay, I'm gonna control click, come back to my layers. I'm going to create a curves adjustment, okay? And now I can darken up my scene in a much more natural manner, all right? So I'm bringing everything that is very, very light, okay? Everything that's very light is now a little bit darker, all right? Or you can do the other way, you know, make a really, really high contrast summer, all right? But you can control your tonality this way, okay? Just by manipulating the tones, all right? And you can say, okay, well, you know, I don't want it to affect all this area in the center as much, right? Get yourself your brush. Make sure that now in this case, I'm going to go with a black brush as my foreground. All right. And I can just go ahead and actually, you know what? I'm not even going to, I'm going to give it a 50% opacity. All right. And I'm just going to tone everything down here. All right. And now I can use these, you know, kind of like broad strokes. All right. I'm using the hammer here. I'm not using a scalpel. All right. And then I can manipulate my tones that way. All right. So now it looks like maybe it's on the brink of a storm. All right. That summer shower where the sky's starting to gray up a little bit, get dark a little bit, but the sun's still out. So you see a lot of brights. Okay. There you go. Before and after. All right. And because I used the tones that were already there, all right, it's applying these changes in a more natural way. All right. Obviously, I'm over exaggerating it with this curves adjustment. You know, for your image, you're probably going to be a little bit lighter on the touch. I just want to make sure that it reads through the video well. Okay, and then just make all your changes. Okay. All right. Maybe we want to. Yeah. Okay. All right. There are other ways of creating masks as well. I'm not going to get into those because they're a little bit more complex. You know, with a mental block here. I can't even think of it, the term right now. But there are other ways. I have a Luminosity Masks. Thank you. I just looked it up. Another way of working with image manipulation is through Luminosity Masks. Okay, and that is kind of sort of what we did with these here. All right. Because this is making a selection on the luminosity, all right? So when we do our control click, all right, and we make a selection, it's making a selection based on the luminosity of our image, all right? But luminosity masks take it a step further. And instead of targeting just middle gray, so it says, all right, I just want to target the light area, okay? Or I just want to target the dark areas, all right? So you can get a lot more refined, but that's a little bit more advanced. I'm not going to touch on those right now because I know I've already fried brains, and I don't want to see smoke pouring out of the computer. All right. But if you can get to the point where you're using channels for your masks, I highly encourage you to play with it because it's going to open up a whole new level of editing that you never had before. All right. And once you have that under your belt, look up Luminosity Masks. Okay. All right. I think I've fried everybody's brain. I know my brain was fried before I even started. And again, I apologize. So, what was that? Somebody just said something? No? Okay.
That was my wife talking.
Oh, sorry. All right. All right. Any final questions? Anything that I can clarify that I totally confused you on?
I have to play with it and see how it works out.
Yeah.
Make my mistakes and
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. Okay. But just just remember. Here, let me get rid of these. All right. Let me see if I can just summarize it with the least amount of confusion. All right. Your image. Click on channels. Click on the red, the green, and then the blue, and it's going to select each one individually. All right. And then judge based on what you're looking at. All right. That's going to create your mask. All right. So in this case, it's a pretty bright image, right? So a lot of the black is down in this corner here. Okay. So there's whatever you do to this layer mask here, it's going to make lots of changes. If we go to the green, you can see that the bridge and the wood railing in the foreground, they're fairly dark, right? So those are going to be pretty well protected, okay? And we go to the blue, we can see that all this vegetation and a lot of the water is very well protected, right? So we're going to have a lot of effect on the sky, all right? Blue tends to be my one of my go-to channels. The other one tends to be the red channel. Not in this particular case, but sometimes with people might be a good way to get the red channel, right? So judge it. Once you have your whatever one you want to use, Control or Command, click on that channel, all right? Make sure you activate the RGB back, all right? We want to get back, otherwise you're going to be on a single channel. Come back into Layers, go to your adjustment and select whatever adjustment that you want, all right? So in my case, I'm a big fan of curves, all right? And then we can go ahead and do whatever we want. Okay. Maybe we'll do a contrast layer. Here we go. Contrast curve. All right. And excuse me. That's about the simplest method that you can learn with this technique. Okay. So learn that. Get used to it. Okay. And again, if you don't like a particular something, you can always go back to the mask, get yourself a, large soft brush, okay, and just paint it on. It's going to bring it all right back. Okay. See, it's just affecting the upper part. Okay. And if I need to, I can even, remove some of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, that's about the easiest. All right. Okay. Let's stop the sharing. Okay. Go back to the chat. Whew. All right. Last minute questions. And again, I apologize. My brain's a little scrambled right now. Like Brian, I'm running on fumes. Okay. All right. Anything? All right. Next week is our last one for the year. All right. It's our Q&A. If you haven't attempted the photo challenge, this month's photo challenge, a triptych, I encourage you to give something a try. And then forward me your results in a JPEG, and we'll talk about it during the class, okay? So hopefully we'll get some submissions, all right? I haven't even started on mine, so don't feel bad. I got to get off my butt and do mine, okay? So look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, all right? If not, get your questions ready, and then we'll just go from there. Okay. All righty, guys. Thank you for putting up with me today. It was a rough one. I know. I apologize, but thank you. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Doc.
All righty, guys.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.